welcome. Today, we are going to discuss about Henry Kissinger. He was very famous in international diplomacy, international relations, especially from American foreign policy. So there are a lot of positive and negative view on Kissinger. So we are going to discuss especially his role in American foreign policy, relationship with China. Actually, Henry Kissinger is not new. He is using Burmese platform since 1950. Burmese China relation, we have platform. At the time, China was no connection with outside world. They don't have friends. They have only able to access with the Burmese China platform, with Burmese platform. That relationship was initiated, but Burmese China platform was not that big like U.S.-China relationship because Burma doesn't have huge economy yet. But it is significant for China to access outside world. So I see that platform was used by Henry Kissinger on U.S.-China relationship. So Henry Kissinger is very famous, but I see that he used Burmese platform because Burmese was, after 1950s, it was military coup dictatorship and socialism government. Still, Burma has a good relationship with American, China, because President Johnson has very good relationship with Burmese dictator Ne Win, General Ne Win. And Burma was very close relationship, Burmese military, especially with Israel too, because during 1950, during Bundang Conference, non-alliance movement, at the time, Burma want to bring Israel into the non-aligned movement, but it was badly, a lot of Islam country, Arab country oppose Israel to be members. So although still Israeli and Burmese military, they have a very good relationship. Continuously, they supply a lot of weapon to the Burma, In that context, I think Henry Kissinger himself is Israeli ethnic background. So he knows global geopolitics. Israel was continuously war since 1950 and till today. And at the time, there was a Korean was finished in 1950, 53, 54, just finished, and beginning of Vietnam War. And the atmosphere was very, a lot of surrounding war. In that context, Henry Kissinger policy, I can understand he can use for short term, real politics, just for stabilization of today. That is a Henry Kissinger policy. But still, I don't know, American are using a lot Henry Kissinger until he died. He was used by many American presidents, until he died. It is all platform. American could not find very good new one. I don't know. So right now, today we have joined by John Mansing. He is also expert on Asia and he himself American. I don't know how American viewing Henry Kissinger and what his background. John, you are speaker today. You can briefly explain about 10-15 minutes about your view and American view on Henry Kissinger, and then we can have discussion. Also, we have Shafan. She is also teaching at the college, university, something like that. So she may join discussion later on. Please, John, it's your time.
The legacy of Henry Kissinger, I guess, is the subject that we're discussing. Kissinger power through a network that he established during the Second World War, where he was in intelligence. I can't remember exactly which field. He was noted for putting together an informal network of experts that he could then use as a kind of extra governmental lobbying force. He worked his way into the Johnson administration, which you mentioned, and he created, he was charged, part of the team that was doing the Paris peace talks with Vietnam. During that time, he back-channeled with Nixon, who was going to become the president, and he created a back channel so that he passed information to Nixon, and he frustrated the negotiations such that Johnson could not be reelected as president. In reward for this, he was given he was given the position of National Security Advisor, which is the single position in the cabinet that doesn't require Senate approval. He then used that position and his friendship with to create a policy faction that would allow for the manipulation of the government by himself, which is to say directly that he short-circuited the State Department so that the State Department was not consulted on major matters of public policy, such as normally such a huge matter of public policy would be open to public debate and to the input of the experts in the State Department. Kissinger knew virtually nothing about China. His study had been in European relations, and he used his position there. Kissinger was very good at sweet-talking the various administration officials. So he used that to set up a company for himself, which was called Kissinger Associates. This Kissinger Associates served as a comprador. When Disney wanted to open a theme park in Shanghai, they hired Kissinger Associates to conduct the negotiations with the Chinese government. Kissinger got very wealthy, of course, off of these negotiations, and not only with Disney, but with many, many, many other corporations. The point being that Kissinger's interest was not in United States policy or even international diplomacy. He was somebody who was purely out for himself. And then after Nixon and opened China to American interests, Kissinger continued to serve in this comprador relationship, where he would frustrate any kind of policy initiatives, for example, support of Tibetan independence, in order to profit for himself. Beyond China, one can look in almost every other theater of international diplomacy between the United States and basically the rest of the world, and find Kissinger's imprint. Kissinger's imprint is always negative and destructive, of course, because he's very self-interested. So let's get a bit to the legacy. Because Kissinger was so successful, as we saw recently with the Trump presidency, the media in the United States is an arm of the government, or is a separate interest for the government, but it is not in any sense independent or objective. The press campaign to support Kissinger as a kind of real diplomat, Kissinger's way of doing business became the ethos of public service. So no longer were public service promoting America's interest or promoting human rights or some kind of global interest. They became careerists. They were out to make a name for themselves and to get advancements in their status. And this continues to be the ethos in Washington today, even though Russia and China were on the breaking point at that point. So Kissinger did nothing to encourage a break in relations between China and Russia, although he took credit for that and is given credit for it. The idea strategically of allying with China was stupid. It was not in America's interest, and it ended up being in Vietnam's interest only because the Chinese were ultimately defeated. So again, no thanks to Kissinger and no thanks to the American involvement there. I don't know what else I want to say about Kissinger's legacy. I think the review I've given here shows it to be entirely negative. I don't think there's anything good about Kissinger's legacy. He was an intelligent man, but he was a very evil man. And his cleverness was all put to self-service. His philosophy or his understanding of history. He wrote several books about China. He doesn't understand China at all. To him, China is a way of promoting his own career and making his personal fortune. And he was successful in that. So his analysis of China in that sense is very profound. But in terms of the interests of the Chinese people, much less the Uyghurs, the Mongols, the Manchus, any neighboring or regional country, or America, it was very damaging and hurtful. The relations with China were established in a method that did not bring advantage to the United States, nor, I would argue, did it bring advantage to the Chinese people. It brought advantage to a small elite of corporations who became, in a sense, an extra governmental force, and perhaps are the strongest ruling force in the globe today. Those corporations that made America's manufacturing base deteriorate to the point of obsolescence and promoted Chinese slave labor as the way that consumer goods are manufactured throughout the world.
Thank you for your brief explanation. So we know more about American point of view. As you said, it's not that really for the people, and you don't see that is much that is not that good for American too. Especially, it's true, it is for elite, top leader for the regime. It is very good for China. And also, I guess, American elite prefer for their own global state, politics that they can use a benefit between elite in China and elite in America and other countries. Definitely he is not that kind of mood for human rights or people freedom. That is nobody expression from any group, from China's side or American side. His main point is let's make stabilization, just connect. But it's a lot of benefit for China because they open up, their economy and a lot of massive manufacturing, trading, it's starting growing Chinese economy. So that made Chinese people unforgettable Henry Kissinger as their good friend. You can see once he died on that day, a lot of Chinese people expressed on their social media, they remember as a good friend from America. They said no one like him in America. They only like Kissinger, like that, a lot of social media spread out in China. So definitely that is a benefit for China. As you said, a lot of, Tibetan or Xinjiang province or Taiwan or many minority general population, China may not feel benefit from Henry Kissinger. So that's we know, and also we are joined by Shafan from Pakistan. She is also a good knowledge about international politics. She can also explain, share her point of view on Henry Kissinger. This Shafan, mood, and you can speak out.
Okay, so am I audible?
Yes, yes, you can.
Okay,
You can.
so let's talk about Henry Kissinger, the great personality of the history, as we have heard and also read. So let's talk about this personality first. When we talk about the foreign policy or when we talk about foreign policy analysis, so the personalities of the leaders or the advisors involved is very important there. So if we come to know about his early life, he was actually a Jew born in Germany, and which from there he flew to America because of the government or the invasion of the Hitler there. So that was actually a disturbing, you can say, childhood for him. So that memories actually reflect in the personalities and actions of that persons who have that disturbing, childhood or history. So if we examine his personality, and I actually second the scholar involved, our participant. So I don't know, I just can't understand the Nobel Prize winner. Actually, he is tagged as a war criminal with a Nobel Prize. Why? If we talk about the positive aspects we have with his personality or with his policies or as his job. So initially, we come to know about the policy of detente with Soviet Union, as we have heard that Kissinger actually played a vital role in the policy of detente, which actually aimed at easing tensions between United States and Soviet Union during the Cold War. Actually, so if we talk about the China, so we have actually heard and we know this that one of the Kissinger's most significant diplomatic achievement was the secret diplomatic initiative that led the normalization of relations between United States and China back in 1972, actually. If we talk about the Vietnam War, then we heard that. I'm actually using the word heard because actually this is all everything we have heard. So Kissinger, in case of Vietnam War, Kissinger was deeply involved in negotiations to end that war, and he played a crucial role in a secret talks with Vietnamese, to the North Vietnamese officials actually, and which actually led to the signing of Paris Peace Accord in 1973. Let's talk about the shuttle diplomacy in Middle East. Kissinger engaged in shuttle diplomacy in the Middle East, attempting to mediate between Israel and its Arab neighbors. And his efforts are regarded as very fruitful and we can say efficient in ending the war, and that took place. That agreement actually took place at Camp David Accords in 1978. Okay, let's talk about the policy attached with Henry Kissinger, the most famous one, realpolitik. What actually realpolitik is? Henry Kissinger was in favor of realpolitik that basically emphasizes on realization, on reality, on self-interest, ignoring any morale of, you can see, the relations among the states that's entirely dependent on a national interest or self-interest of states. Then the second most important aspect we heard about Henry Kissinger's attributes is his art of diplomacy. Why he won the Nobel Prize is because of diplomacy. When he took place, when he actually practiced that diplomacy, we have certain examples which I discussed about. Okay, let's talk about his contributions, his academic contribution. As he was an academia, he was a professor in University of Harvard. So let's not ignore that contributions also. Okay, his book, A World Restored. He talked about the diplomatic strategies of European leaders in aftermaths of Napoleonic Wars. Let's talk about his book, Nuclear Weapons and Foreign Policy. In this book, he actually discussed the role of nuclear weapons in US foreign policy during the Cold War. Okay, now move on towards his book, The Necessity for Choice, Prospects of American Foreign Policy. In this book, he explores various aspects of American foreign policy, including the challenges and the choices faced by United States during the Cold War. Then we have The World Restored. Then we have the most important book, The Troubled Partnership, a reappraisal of the Atlantic alliances, in which he actually assessed the states of Atlantic alliances and explored the challenges and opportunities of facing the United States and European partners. Then we have diplomacy, which is actually considered as a Bible in international relations, or we can say history, or we can say the policies of the United States, in which he provides analysis of the history and the practice of diplomacy. He draws on historical examples to explore the role of diplomacy in shaping the world. Next, his major contribution is Does America Need a Foreign Policy Towards a Diplomacy for the 21st Century? In this book, he depicts the challenges and opportunities facing American foreign policy in 21st century. Then the world order, in which he talked about the different changes international system has experienced after Treaty of Westphalia, then contemporary challenges like globalization, technological advancements, diffusion of power. Then he talked about the cultural and civilizational perspectives, actually. Then he also talked about Islamic world. He talked about the role of China as a growing influence and how it might affect the existing world order. And then he talked about US rule and responsibilities. He also talked about multilateralism, unilateralism. He also talked about the balance of power. This is one side of the story. I want people to read between the lines. He got Nobel Prize for his contributions. On the other hand, what about the tag of a war criminal? Why he is considered as a war criminal? Let's talk about his contribution in extending the wars in Southeast Asia. Let's talk about Cambodia first. One of the most significant criticisms relates to the secret bombing campaign in Cambodia during Vietnam War, actually. The US expanded its military operations in Cambodia without congressional approval. The bombings caused civilian casualties and contributing to the destabilizing the region, actually. This is the most devastating event in the history of international relations, which we can't ignore. Now, move towards Chile coup. That happened in Chile. Kissinger has been linked to US involvement in 1973 coup in Chile, which led to the overthrow of a democratically elected government and the subsequent military regime, actually, led by General Pinochet, engaged with human rights abuses. This was one of the main events that we can say we can get the examples of human rights abuses there, actually. Then move towards East Timor. Kissinger's role in Indonesian invasion of East Timor in 1975 also has been criticized many times. The invasion resulted in widespread of human rights violations, and Kissinger's support for Indonesian government during the period has been questioned. Actually, there is a big question mark on his involvement there. Then there are many alleged war crimes in Vietnam, and some critics argue that Kissinger's role in Vietnam War, particularly the strategic bombing campaigns, may have involved actions that could be considered as war crimes. So that was actually another side of the story. If you talk about, there is a magazine which was actually involved in investigation regarding the policies and actions of Henry Kissinger, and that magazine is named as Intercept. In that magazine, they actually provide evidences for the Henry Kissinger's involvement in many war crimes. And there is a statement from a veteran war crime prosecutor, Reed Brody. He said about Henry Kissinger that very few people who have had a hand as much death and destruction, as much human sufferings in so many places around the world as Henry Kissinger. So that was actually a biggest statement. That was actually a biggest, you can say, the unveil of his personality, his actions, because he was actually involved in many war crimes. And when we question his actions, and when we question his policies, and we have many.
John, I think you can have it in this second round.
Okay, so the 2 points that were mentioned that I caught up with were first was the idea of shuttle diplomacy. I think that's a good example of how Kissinger and the media worked together to rebrand, what is shuttle diplomacy? It's diplomacy, that period. There is no such thing as shuttle diplomacy. But by rebranding what he was doing as something more heroic than the mundane matters of international relations, he promoted himself as a foreign policy guru, or as somehow successful as a careerist, by changing the definition of what it was that he was doing. What actually he was doing was bad diplomacy. There's good diplomacy and bad diplomacy. Kissinger's was bad. But he rebranded it as something that was, sexy and interesting. So Kissinger was very good at marketing himself. And in harnessing the tools of the state, meaning the media empire, to promote his interests. The second idea was that of realpolitik, which is a term that's often used when we have discussions about foreign policy. In my view, it has absolutely no meaning whatsoever. It's a way of distinguishing your policy as being better than the other guy's policy suggestions. But what does it mean? It means nothing. So Kissinger is often touted as a master of politics, which means he's a master of gobbledygook. That struck me from the previous. I think it say something about the concept of the American system, because graphical approach, you have the Buddhist sort of theocratic model of governance, which I think is still what is being used today in cooperation with the military model that the British set up. and then you have occupation by China and ethnocide of all the tribes of Burma, which is what you saw in what you're seeing in Laos, and Cambodia, and what you saw in Tibet, and what you're seeing now in the Uyghur-speaking areas of Eastern Turkmenistan, and what you saw with the Manchus and the Mongols in the last century and a half. So, so what does Kissinger mean as a liberal democracy, pantheon holder? He represents, nothing to do with the ideals of liberal democracy. He shows that the liberal democratic system, such as it is, can be subject to elite capture. The Chinese would view, you mentioned that Kissinger, the Chinese celebrated the legacy of Henry Kissinger because they didn't do it. He got very wealthy off the China trade, but of course China wouldn't have made that deal if it wasn't in China's interest, or at least in the interest of Chinese elites, to struck the deal that they did with Kissinger. And so Kissinger was very good for business in China. And perhaps that's the most telling aspect of his legacy, is that it was celebrated by the Chinese leadership. I think that's about it. Well, just to review that point about liberal democracy, that Kissinger was able to capture power for himself shows the weakness of the Western government institutions, or the American government institutions, that they can be subverted. He probably couldn't have done that without the power of China behind him. But to the degree he functioned as a public service before making his connection with China, and some of the things he functioned in afterwards, that shows the weakness of the American system.
He's a really academician, but yeah, many criticism about his role. As Shafan also said, human rights violation in Chile, example, also in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. This, Kissinger is the one to point finger, And Chile case, I mean, U.S. foreign policy in case of liberal democratization, I mean, the proposed intention is good in case of Chile, but the strategy, the action is totally wrong. It become massacre, human rights violation. A lot of people suffer and die. It is, the outcome is very bad. I mean, intention is good. They want to promote liberal democracy in Chile and to prevent communism or socialism in Chile, but action strategy is totally wrong. And a lot of violation, bombing in Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, indiscriminately bombing, unnecessary, it's kill unnecessary a lot of civilian. That should be the one to be finger pointed out here. So these are the thing, and of course China get benefit from Kissinger. As you said, he is also a good businessman and a good just making money, nothing about human rights or liberal democratization. As academician, he's supposed to promote international norms and standards like human rights, liberal democratization. He is failed, even though he is very famous academician. He is more in the side of violation, destruction of human. Academicians should always know norms and standards like human rights, liberal democracy. So the thing is, even he do just for short term, real politics for stabilization, very short time during 1970, 1960, surrounding war at the time. I'm not blaming him. He's doing okay for that, you know, during surrounding war. But after later on, still many American politicians, even his Kissinger himself, is still using that, stabilization only. They never go for second step, you know, second step for long term and more, more uh, better one. Like it should be include liberal democratization, human rights, promote something like that. But they never able to go for second step. I don't know what's wrong in American foreign policy, and many U.S. presidents also rely on him. And also, I don't know Chinese position. They are in favor of Harry Kissinger. I don't know China. They are not stand with Israeli. I have no idea. Maybe Israeli Muslim issue, China role. Maybe Shafan may also have to say something, I guess.
Okay, what was I saying? What were you saying about Kissinger's role in promoting I don't know, his role in academia? He was not liked at all at Harvard. And they refused to let him teach or speak there, other than his initial he got a break there initially, but after he left to go into government, they did not want him back. I don't know how helpful it is to look at him as an academician. He portrayed himself certainly as a, sort of a wise statesman. He wrote many books, but I do not see any wisdom in his thinking, nor any historical knowledge. He was a good bullshitter, I think would be the short take on him. And the way he got into power, by back channeling information from the Paris peace agreement accords back to Nixon in order to promote his own career, I think is probably the most telling anecdote from his backstory. Yeah, he was a very slimy character. He was good at patronizing people's intellects. That is, he was very obsequious, and he was good at manipulating people, I guess is one way to do it. I think you mentioned that he was Jewish. He came from Berlin. So the Berlin Jews were quite distinct from their Slavic and other brethren. So they thought of themselves in a sense as very superior culturally, whereas the mass of Jewry at that point, or in the 19th century, was viewed as being uncultured in a sense. They were always the butt of jokes culturally, and they were not, of course, assimilated into the majority cultures there. So they formed a separate community. And but the Berlin sort of elite Jews that Kissinger was a part of, well, one could go more into that culture, but I just wanted to make that emendation to his cultural background. It fits with his personality, I should say.
Okay, so Shafan, you want to say? Unmute it and you can speak.
Okay, just referring to the diplomacy of Kissinger. What diplomacy is? Diplomacy is actually art of telling people to go to hell in such a way that they ask for directions. So that's what done by Henry Kissinger actually. So that was through a combination of raw ambitions, media manipulations, and an uncanny ability to obscure the truth and avoid scandals. Like Kissinger transformed himself from a college professor and a bureaucrat into the most celebrated American diplomat, actually, of the 20th century, we can say. So he was hailed as the playboy of the West Indies and a sex symbol for the Nixon administration, actually. So he was photographed with starlets and became a fodder for the gossip volumes, actually. So there is a book by Christopher Hitchens, The Trial of Henry Kissinger. So he called Kissinger's prosecution for war crimes, for crimes against humanity, and for offenses against common or customary or international law, including conspiracies to commit murders, kidnap, and torture. So that was actually the examples we discussed from Bangladesh, Argentina, Chile, Cambodia, Laos. So Kissinger actually bent questions about bombing of Cambodia and muddied the truth in a public, we can say a comments. So Kissinger was much of the world actually considered Kissinger as a war criminal. So, but no one actually dare to hold the cuffs of an American advisor. So there is much have left obscure or unclear. So that needs to be reached. The reality actually needs to reach the world. What actually the Nobel Peace Prize winner was. That's all.
Yes, thank you, Shafan. It's some many people point out he should be uh, at the court criminal for his criminal activity, his criminal action. But I think nobody punished him, and I don't know, in America they never inquiry or investigate for his action. When John McCain, he was chair of those subcommittee, that time a lot of 2, 3 Secretary of State, including Henry Kissinger, they explain what they did in the past, something like that. There was some protest were there at the meeting. They request hang him to his criminal action, something like this. But John McCain was totally different story for him. Henry Kissinger is because Henry Kissinger is savior for John McCain, because when he was in prison in Vietnam, Kissinger came to Vietnam and he bring out a kind of, he made a deal with Vietnam government, that McCain will never do such kind of, punishing or action on Kissinger. So I don't think McCain did not do, and other people also never do. And McCain even chased them, those protesters. Absolutely, he protected Henry Kissinger. And McCain family and Henry Kissinger relationship is so good and so, smoothly until he died. Even still, Henry Kissinger is speak at the funeral of McCain, So I don't know in America, I don't know other country or Muslim country, they ever inquiry or investigate.
No, unfortunately, uh, including America and none other country has actually dared to question or dare to investigate about the actions or advisory or the policies of Henry Kissinger. So that's actually a failure. Because I think that refers to the knowledge power nexus, the things which are reaching to us that are coming from the powerful segment of international system. So Kissinger counseled every US president, like from Nixon to Donald Trump, and served as a member of President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board, actually. So after being tagged and head the 9/11 commissions, families of victims actually raised questions about the potential conflicts of interest due to Kissinger's financial ties with the government. that could be, we can say implicated in the commission's work. So Kissinger quit rather than hand over a list of consultancy clients. So this is a failure from any human rights commission, human rights agency, United Nations, or we can say the countries which went through human rights abuses, and also America, that no one actually questioned or
Right.
said dare to question the policies or actions of Henry Kissinger.
They are not there to do him. Even they still respected and they still rely on him. A lot of American president, policymaker, a lot of academicians, scholar, they rely on Kissinger too. Nobody were there to, accuse or action as a criminal, because he is the main global policy maker to have done a lot of human violation, a lot of killing. He is one of the one, not, he cannot escape, right? What about Israel, Islamic country, Arab country relation? Any impact by Henry Kissinger? Do you have idea?
Like Kissinger's legacy extends beyond the corpses, the traumas, and the sufferings of the victims left behind. So his policies actually set the stage for the civilian carnage of the US war on terror, from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Syria to Somalia and beyond. We can say that you can trace a line from the bombing of Cambodia to the present. So, about that human rights abuses or violations, what Henry Kissinger said was that covert justification for illegally bombing Cambodia became the framework for the justification of drone strikes and forever war. So it's a perfect expression of American militarization and broken circle. So the thing is, the truth, the reality about the personality has actually failed to reach the audience. And what I think, we are actually here so that we can educate people the reality or the things that exist between the lines, behind the curtain. Like we should shed the tears, we should shed the foam, and we should penetrate and should analyze the actions that has left long-standing effects on the victimizations and the victims that face that human rights violation.
Yes, of course. Kissinger role is more about hard power, not soft
Yes.
power. He is not doing,
So
not ever promoting soft power.
yes,
He's doing all the hard power, bombing, killing, shooting. So it's not at all soft power for liberal democratization, human rights. He is not interested at all with those soft power. I mean, Pakistan foreign policy, they may not in favor with Kissinger policy, right?
actually, Pakistanis are very much blunt about their statements, about their expressions. So I have
Maybe
talked about
India maybe more prefer Kissinger.
Yes, actually, because they are actually practicing some of the hard taught policies relevant to Kissinger. But in Pakistan, I have taught my students about Henry Kissinger's personality, about his actions. Actually, which I have discussed that personality and the history very much have strong influence on the personality of advisor or we can say a policy maker. So in foreign policy analysis, we actually we actually learn how personality of the leaders affect their policies and actions. So that's also a very much important point. If we relate it or compare it with Hitler, so he is also devastating memory or devastating childhood, disturbed memory or disturbed history. So his actually history and his experience is reflected in his actions and policies.
Right. Thank you, Shafan, for today.
Okay.
We can have a good discussion. I guess John, his connection is so bad, Sometimes
Yeah.
his song is not properly, not clearly hearing. Maybe he has problem with connection, so he already gone.